One take one. Back with a couple more notes. I decided to open a couple of burgundies, just because I don't usually do that. Continuing on a little bit on that theme from the last video, I have to say, this whole idea of, should some of the Premier Crus be elevated to Grand Cru in Burgundy, in red, or in white, it's a bit of a fun discussion these days. Although I'm not too sure it's a valid one, because I mean, all that's going to happen is the price will go up. So it's almost more fun to just try to identify the Premier Crus where we think the quality is underpriced, where we're getting value for money. And in Burgundy, that's very, very difficult to do. If you're comparing wine to wine with other areas, other regions, other countries, especially, you might have a hard time finding value. But I'd also argue that you might have a hard time finding, you'll find some that are close, maybe in terms of style to Pinot, the Burgundy Pinots. But not really. I think they miss. New World often sticks out pretty clearly that it's New World. Not to say that some can't get close. I think some do. Domaine de la Côte, I remember, in 2015, I thought was getting there. And I suspect, I remember reading somewhere even, that's kind of what they are trying to do. So, kind of sort of succeeding, I would say, with that. Anyway, this is not about that wine, because that wine is no longer in my cabinet. I had a few. They're long gone. What do we got in my glass today? Well, nice color. Look at that. Very, very lively, darkened, so you can see that it has some age, but without losing any energy. It's very, very energetic, bright yellow. On the nose, it's just a fabulous concoction of mineral and maybe pineapple and some of the more lifted herbs, not mint, but in that family, in those sort of menthol, eucalyptus-y types of feel to it. Even, this has been open overnight now. I think there's a little bit of almost, not going to sound very appetizing, but body sweat, body odor in a good way. Muskiness. There's something super, super captivating in this nose, I have to say. Not a hint of age, not a hint of mushroom or anything that sort of suggests it's even come to its, to its cruising window. It's still on the way up. Confirmed on palate too. This is a very, very powerful mouthful, surprisingly powerful, with some real energy, real drive, real bite. Gets in there, gets into every crook and cranny in your mouth and saturates it. Finishes tad dry, just a tiny bit dry, but ever so elegantly anyway. This is wine. And this makes me very happy. For one thing, because I did a recent video on 08s, wondering, is it just me? Did I think 08s were better than they are? Or are they maturing too fast? Or, what's going on? And this, restores my faith in the vintage. The producer probably has something to do about it as well. But still, the wines that I had before, the Meursault and the other Meursault, I can't remember which your idea was, but they were very advanced. They were very overripe and not completely oxidized, but incorrect in the sense that they had aged way too fast, and they must be poorly made wines or poorly stored wines. And I'm actually leaning towards the former rather than the latter, because even if they were poorly stored, it's only 15 years, just not that long in the wine world for me, especially for Meursault, or from a decent Burgundy terroir plot. Meursault Chalon, for instance, it's not, there's no shrinking violet. You could say it should be able to handle 15 years in bottle, even poorly stored, and still come out of it fairly okay. I mean, but these were not good examples. Anyway, this changes everything back to where we were. Genevrières is one of my favorites. Actually, in Meursault, it is probably my favorite, even more so than Perrier. Yes. In general, very, very generally speaking. Although the best Meursault I've ever had was Perrier. Anyway, this is hauntingly fantastic. It's long, it's pushy, it's got drive. It sings. It's so joyful. And it has a ton of presence. And this, like I said, this is not ready to go. It isn't where it's meant to be. It's still on the way up. I think it's got many, many years to go. It's a great sign. This is the 2008 Genevrières from Henri Boillot. Just a top-notch bottle of wine. I really, really enjoy this. There's no flab anywhere on this. It's very trim, very elegant. Blind, I would have went Grand Cru, which kind of ties in nicely to that last video, because especially with whites, I think these days there's so many great things happening that maybe I'm just comparing it to the, to the state, the general poor state of 1er Crus in the past. I don't know, but I haven't really found them to be all that bad. I mean, maybe they don't last as long as the reds, but there's still some really good examples, whereas the Grand Crus, they can last. They're good 20, 30 years, depending on the producer. But this, I'll bet you, is a 20 to 30 year wine. It's 15 already, so. The mineral in this is so present and yet subtle. It's taut and yet sort of rhythmic. A real masterpiece. I think this is a really, really good piece of winemaking. I'm super impressed. This I'm going to seek out at every opportunity. Highly recommended. Auction bottle. They're not cheap, but in lieu of buying Grand Crus, which you shouldn't be drinking young anyway, this is a much, much better buy. It's less money than a new Grand Cru, and it's right up there in quality, and it's just going to get better. If I saw a case of this, I think I'd probably go in on a case for sure. What else are we going to try today? Well, let's have a glass of red too. That is just so strawberry. It's just so strawberry, and with a black licorice kind of undertone to it. It's got that, that kind of warm strawberry that's been sitting in the sun, wild strawberry that's been sitting in the sun. Kind of gives a little bit of funk to it. There's a bit of funk to this. Some violet, something like that. Black tea. Very umami, very light, I must say. It is quite a light wine. And of course, I just had a mouthful of the white, so, I probably should have rinsed between, but there's a smoky mustiness to this. Not an age mustiness, but almost like musk, that is very, very sensual, I must say. It's a little bit young too, surprisingly. It's very light. I mean, I think it could use just a bit more depth. But I love the flavors. I love the persistence of this. Once you've had a mouthful, there's an attractive spiciness that just kind of sits in place and just kind of drips on down on the palate and I don't know, sort of creates this sort of fog almost of that kind of musky flavor that just kind of imbues everything, very, very nice. I mean, it's a structured wine. It's more of a form wine than a flavor wine, you could say. Which for me is my favorite in Burgundy. I love the structures of these wines. This, I think, could use just a tad more depth to the fruit. But other than that, it's glorious. It's a glorious little wine. And this is a 2011 Clos Denis from Marchand. I got 3 of them. I opened one at a tasting at a group wine tasting. So we drank it blind and kind of assessed it, and it didn't score very high. It performed, it just didn't score very high. And I kind of expected that. It wasn't a huge surprise to me. It's kind of difficult. I think in these blind tasting situations, if your objective is to score highly, then you should go with the wines that have more, punch to them. A big Bordeaux, or maybe a Rhone type wine, or a New World, punchier types, because subtlety is not blind tastings where you're going to taste multiple wines. There's lots of different kinds of wines. There's all kinds of snacks around, and there's a time thing kind of going on. You're rushing through things a little bit, and you're not getting a lot of each one. Then the subtleties in Burgundy get lost. So I kind of get it. I wasn't that surprised, but at the same time, I think it's nice to have a Burgundy sort of sitting in amongst all the others and trying to sort of fit in, or to find its place, or to set an example, or sometimes to outshine everybody. That does happen, but it usually ends, that's when you're in some pretty serious wines. This is a 2011 Aaron's Clos Denis. Clos Denis, I haven't had a lot of examples of, but I've had Dujac, and I remember the Dujac. I mean, that was Bordeaux. I loved it. It was fantastic. This, I'm not as much in love with, but I really appreciate it anyway. This is far subtler than that wine was. It's more delicate. And so it is. I mean, I think there's just some terroirs are more like that. I think Clos Denis is one of them. I don't think it's ever going to be a deep, deep wine anyway. But 2011, we could talk a little bit about that vintage. It's highly underrated. As a matter of fact, somebody I talked to in Paris over the summer claims, in her experience, that 2011 in Burgundy is better than 2010. I took that with a grain of salt, but at the same time, I was happy that someone else recognized that 2011s, there are good wines. There are great wines even. So, again, producer is everything, really. I don't think it has any greenness or any sort of feel that it was an off vintage or anything like that. It maybe just doesn't have the depth or the warmth you might want, if that's the type of Burgundies you like. I was a big fan of 04, for instance, and 04 was, it was panned by everybody other than me, really. But I loved 04 in Burgundy. When it was done right, it was fantastic. I mean, there was a lot of problems, ladybugs and all kinds of stuff, but The wines, for me, I just liked the style. I liked them a little bit, a little green and a little bit more astringent, lighter with the obvious intensity. And this is about as close to 04 as you're going to get within the last 20 years, I would think. 11. Yeah, really good wine. But Scott Marchand is Canadian. So there's that angle as well. In any case, I like his wines. I mean, 2010 issues, I drank maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, during COVID. It's absolutely fabulous. And then some of the Clos de Bez. I think it was Clos de Bez. It was one of the Chamotin Grand Crus. I think it's Clos de Bez. They were magnificent. I had many vintages, 11, 12, 13. They were giving them away, not giving them away, but giving them away compared to in today's pricing structure system at auction. So, I mean, I got those and the Echezos. If I ever see the Echezos again, I'm just going to just jump on them. They're fabulous. These of Echezos. It's a good time to be drinking Burgundy this time of year. Maybe that's what lifts it, makes them all great. At the same time, it is a Grand Cru. Is this Clos Saint-Denis worthy of its place in the Grand Cru hierarchy? Absolutely. I don't have any qualms about that. I think there's probably some Premier Crus that are better than this, but a little bit more depth would have helped make its case more clearly. Okay, that's it for this time. Thanks a lot for watching. Stay thirsty.